Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm the host of Locked On Capitals, Dan Holme, so let's get into it here as the Capitals prepare to take on the Blues this evening. And if there was ever a game for the Capitals to make right what has been wrong here, I think that this could be a game that the Capitals definitely could win. However, I don't want them to fall into any pitfalls or traps, if you will, thinking that this game tonight against the Blues is going to be easy. I'll talk about that. And then a bit later, who we expect to see in this game. And hint, hint, a player that we have not seen for quite some time. So let's just get going here on the afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals. And the Capitals are at an interesting point of the season, aren't they? Where, you know, kind of stringing together some wins. You're thinking, hey, maybe they can do it. And if you're an everydayer of the show, I think you know my stance. It's kind of been consistent since the trade deadline that, and Chris Patrick said as much as well, that even before the Olympic break, that the Capitals really felt like they were on the outside looking in. And now even more so, that they lost games that they really needed to win. And while it's not impossible for them to make it to the playoffs, the chances of doing that are getting slimmer and slimmer by the moment. So let's dive into that here, talking about the Capitals doing things that, well, teams like the Capitals do late in the season, where they do things where they look and they feel competitive. But the standings, they're not lying for the Capitals. 6 points out. 6. And you can point out to a 5-game streak. You can say, hey, they went 3-0-2. You can lean into that, but come on. They just lost a game to the Colorado Avalanche where they led going into the third period. And that's the stat that sticks with me. That was a game where a win was definitely in their reach. And things that have haunted the Capitals all season long came back to haunt them in the third period. You take a look at the record, 26-1-2 when leading after 2 periods. That one loss, that's the kind of thing that kills this season, because good teams close that. Playoff teams close that. This version of the Capitals, they almost close it. And that's been the theme of this season. And even head coach Spencer Carberry basically admitted, saying, quote, "You're protecting a lead and you give one back. Those games can go either way," unquote. Yeah, but contenders don't live in that either way. They tilt it. That, going into this season, there was no real surprise. A lot of the guys, the people that cover the NHL, that cover the Capitals, I'm going to say it's mostly people that cover the NHL big picture, said, the Capitals did good things last year, but we don't predict that they'll do that this season. And I remember I was listening to Caps this morning, and they had a guest on there, and they said, well, what are the chances of the Caps being able to do what they did last year? That many of the players put up record numbers. What are the odds that those same players are going to be able to do that? And well, as it turns out, a lot of those insiders were right. Now, you can take a look at the offense, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. Since early February, 2.69 goals per game, bottom third in the league. Meanwhile, Logan Thompson is out there posting a .914 save percentage and a 2.38 goals against. That it's good that Logan Thompson is dialed in, but he cannot save the Capitals and their deficiencies with their offense, right? He's basically dragging them into relevance. And then you heard Justin sort of say it. He said, quote, "He's always bailing us out. We'd like to put a couple more in the net for him," unquote. And the Capitals have had jumps here, boosts as of late. Think about the return of Pierre-Luc Dubois, who missed a lion's share of the season due to injury. And you also think about the addition of Cole Hudson and what that meant in a small game sample. But I think Cole realized what the rest of the Capitals players and fans know, that, when it comes to a team like the Avalanche, they just really didn't stack up, or they did stack up. They just didn't find a way to close out the game. You know what I'm talking about? It's that 60-minute games, that elusive 60-minute game that we hear so much about, that the Capitals will play a good 20, maybe 40-minute game, but 60 minutes is something that we have not seen from the Capitals all season long. But you take a look at sort of saying that he's bailing us out. We'd like to put some in the net for him. Yeah, you'd like to, but you're not. And that is ultimately what is putting the Capitals in the position that they're in. And that's why this road trip, like I said, starting against the St. Louis Blues, isn't just another stretch of games. It's a truth serum. Well, why? Because the Blues are 7-1-2 in their last 10. Hot team, desperate team, just like you. So yeah, the biggest takeaway, the Caps don't need good efforts anymore. They need wins. And when you take a look at the Blues, what are they playing for? They're playing for pride, at the end of the day, right? Playing for pride of their jersey. Some of those players have been there for a while. They're playing for their future. And in a lot of ways, I don't want to say spoiler because, the Capitals are definitely not clear-cut favorites to make the playoffs. But I think that we're at the point of the season where, hey, let's just kind of air out a Hail Mary pass and see what happens. I think that, that's kind of, the Capitals and the Blues are similar in that situation. So you take a look at where the Capitals are at. Again, they're not, out of it mathematically yet, but it's getting closer game by game. We're hoping somehow, some way that this team can string together and play a really solid 60-minute game and then do that and repeat that. And maybe, just maybe, there is a chance. All right, so coming up here after the break, Ivan Miroshnichenko, playing isn't about tonight. It's about the Capitals and what they're becoming. I'll discuss straight ahead. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. I recently went to an NBA game, and I pulled up the Gametime app, picked up an upcoming game, and had tickets locked in within minutes. I love seeing the all-in pricing up front, no surprise fees at checkouts, and being able to see the view from the seat before made buying was super easy. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not com. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter the most. Robinhood prediction market changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when the momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play-by-play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission, merchant, and swap firm. All right, welcome back into this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank all of you for making this your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So next, let's pivot to something that's got me, a little bit excited here, is that Ivan Miroshnichenko is going to be in the game tonight, and it's mostly based out of necessity. But at the end of the day, we needed to see this for quite some time. So let's pivot there because this one is sneaky important. Ethen Frank goes down day to day, lower body, nothing catastrophic, which, okay, that's good news. But the real story for me is that Ivan Miroshnichenko is back in. Now, of course, if you're a Capitals fan, you know that he's had sips of coffee with the Capitals before, showed, some good things, but, ultimately nothing that makes him, or at least the Capitals organization, believe that we need to see him here on a night in, night out basis. And it is a bit of a head scratcher when you take a look at it that we've had Hendrix Lapierre on this team, and it's been not a great season, all things considered, if I'm going to paint it with a broad brush. And the fear was, well, we can't send him down to Hershey because he's never going to clear waivers. Well, what difference does it make? You didn't trade him at the deadline. And he's probably going to walk, this summer, and the Capitals are going to get a 0. And this whole season has just kind of been, questionable judgment. We didn't want to do that with Lapierre because he could get, he's never going to clear waivers, former first-round pick, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, Ivan Miroshnichenko playing solid in Hershey and has been kind of, just a spectator, an extra skater, a healthy scratch for the Capitals. And the whole time, certain things scream out to me. Why not Miroshnichenko earlier? Why not Ilya Protas earlier? Why not Andrew Crystal earlier when you got guys in there like Lapierre, you got guys in there like Duhaime, guys like that there's better options, or at least ostensibly better options. So anyway, Miroshnichenko back in. It's your time to shine, because this isn't just a next man up for Miro. This is a signal. Because let's be honest here for a minute. He was a healthy scratch for 8 straight games. 8. Madness. That's not development. That is parking a prospect, which is one of the worst things you can possibly do. But now, fourth line minutes with Duhaime and Hendrix Lapierre, and on paper, not too sexy, but context matters here. I think the kid, 31 points in 38 AHL games, first-round talent, real scoring upside. If you've watched or listened to the show for a long time, I said maybe at some point Alex Ovechkin 2.0. And the Capitals, they don't score. So what are we doing here? Because you can't tell me this is just about replacing Frank. This feels like management and Carberry starting to ask the bigger questions. What do we actually have in this guy right now? And here's what I'm going to lean into. I think this is the beginning of the shift. It's been for a bit here, because at the same time, you've got Alex Ovechkin, hitting 1,000 career goals, regular season plus playoffs. Let that one breathe for a second, 1,000. And Carberry called it another accolade for him in his incredible career, and it is. But it's also a reminder of something else. We are watching the end of the era while trying to extend it, and those things don't always align. You've got Ovi still producing, young guys like Miro trying to break in, a team stuck in the middle. That's not a contender blueprint. That is a transition. So when Miro steps in on the ice tonight versus St. Louis, don't just watch the shifts. Watch the intent. Are they letting him create or just survive a checking line? Is this development or just damage control? Because I'm going to say it right out. If the Capitals are serious about chasing a playoff spot, they need offense. And Lapierre is not the guy. He went over a season without scoring a goal. This guy was in the lineup pretty much every night. I mean, I think there was a scratch here or two this season, but big picture, Lapierre has been in there, and this guy has not done next to anything. Generating chances, underlying stats, I want to see goals, assists, production. You can take the underlying stats and put them in the garbage as far as I'm concerned, as far as Lapierre is concerned. Because if they're serious about the future, they need to find out who Miro is. They need to peel the Band-Aid off and say, no, you're going to grow with this team. You're going to grow with this team. We're going to put our faith in you. We're not going to just, punish you because you had a bad game. We're going to let this kid grow. You take a look at it. They need to see who Miro is. And those 2 goals, they might not, they're about to collide. And that's where I'm at, because this game, it's not just about Caps versus Blues. It's present versus future. And we're about to find out which one wins. At the end of the day, I'm pulling for Miro. I think that, he's earned a spot, and I think that it's been a waste to have him sitting up in the press box, but it is what it is. Caps versus Blues tonight. We're hoping to see the Capitals win for 1, and hopefully Miro can be productive in the game tonight. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.